ability. It's your way to actually support your friends in the flow of combat, i.e. the handler, who can't really fight directly, but can definitely indirectly fight because they have the ability to pretty much build as many bonds as they want, while vampires can only have a maximum of 2 at any time per agent. The other big thing with them is that it also gives people a little bit more reason to be invested in drama scenes. Pretty much you're always going to be building these bonds, and since you're always going to be building these bonds, you can always encourage to spend them. Kind of mitigates a few different things, and hopefully the goal there is to make sure things work properly. This is pretty much also one of the very few ways to reduce your frenzy, because at the end of a session, any bonds with any vampiric agents are used to reduce frenzy by 1s. So pretty much if they have, let's say among everybody you have 5 bonds with somebody, they can reduce their frenzy by 5, which is very important, because if at the end of the end phase, the conclusion phase, if you have if you have more frenzy than blood flow and you can't reduce it by anything, well, you're going to be fucked. You are, as they say in the hood, fucked. So hopefully this was kind of a weird band-aid to a situation that's going to come up. Rewrote some of these, rewrote how drama works. Rewrote some basic stuff in investigation, just some little stuff. But mostly I wanted to get across more information about the nature of, hey, you're a fucking vampire. Have fun. Get going. Now, let me see if everything looks correct. Everything does look correct. Today is a big day because today is the conflict phase. Otherwise known as, this is the day where we have to go over the fighty, smashy, hitty game. And as you kind of see here in the corner, I was working on it a little bit today. I have the basics of how everything's supposed to be. It's just writing everything out at this point. Hence, if you saw the ping earlier, it was actually about this in particular. I think I have it to where it's going to work. I think. I don't really know if it's going to flow nicely, however, but that's half the fun, isn't it? So, here's everything here. The other thing, I should actually tell people this because I feel like telling people about this. I've decided on this autism project as well. I'm just going to be doing this in between things. I probably won't stream this at all because it's not really fun. It's just time consuming. This is a JRPG I found randomly on Twitter called from what I can find, it's the Human Spirit Resonance RPG Kisnight. I can't really pronounce it because I'm not fucking Japanese. Found this on complete accident, effectively, and I've just been doing what I can effectively say is the jank-ass version of an RPG, of a translation, by just plugging it into things like Yandex or plugging into things like DeepL, while making some small notes by myself. Literally, that is all I've been doing. I was doing this till like 5 last night because I just got really fascinated in it. What's this game about? It's about ghosts. You're playing ghosts, but you're playing a person who is bonded to a ghost would be a more accurate statement. And in case you're wondering, yes, I have just copy pasted this entire website throughout, so you people can reference here's the Japanese. Here's the translation in case there's any graphic issues. So in case you want to know why there hasn't more work been done, because I've been working on this, and this is a bitch. So yeah, I might do a stream of that. I don't know, but we need to go here. But yes, today is the phase system. Today is the conflict phase and conclusion phase. That really is the crux of what I want to get done today. Is to get all of this done, and we're good. Am I feeling confident about it? Yeah. This entire project's been kind of a fucking mess, to be honest. It's been kind of a disaster area, but it's been interesting, if anything. Not heading 1, it'd be heading 2. We need to talk about the conflict phase. Conflict phase, which we go here, and we need to word this? How do I want to word this? Actually, during their investigation, agents will will encounter those who are actively working against them, and may even attack them. When the agents come under threat, they are considered to be in the conflict phase. In the conflict phase, a conflict at its core is a battle between vampires, humans, or a mixture of both. All of which have an immediate sense of danger. Vampire. Let's do vampire. Let's say vampire. Vampires fight less in the traditional manner, and actually no. How do I want to word this? Vampire fights tend to escalate quickly, especially among those who are already frenzied. These battles are quick, devastating, and are a quick exchange. Hello, phone. Exchange of blows, bites. Let's see, blows, bites, and how do I want to do this? Blows, bites, and these battles are quick exchange of blows, bites, and blocks before the two peel off of one another to circle back. Vampires fight like animals. No tactics, no grace. Simply an exchange of blows and blood. Blood before circling one another again to find an opening. When caught in the middle, humans are at a distinct disadvantage. Being slower than a frenzied vampire means they are going to get savaged quickly and without retort. Let's see. Humans kind of distinct disadvantage. Being slower than the frenzied vampire means that they're going to get savaged quickly without retort. Hi, what did I miss? You've missed really nothing, outside of me just kind of going over what changed, which was mostly just adding the bond system, which was your ability to influence other people directly by going out and doing stuff with them. And generally speaking, I'm going to have to rewrite this section, I think, but I want to get the conflict system done. That's the goal right now. If I can get the conflict system done, I'm good. Let's see. Humans are a distinct disadvantage. Then frenzied vampire means they're going to get savage quickly without retort. The only recourse a human has against a vampire attack is a vampire attack is the knowledge that the vampire does not often want to kill them. Only feed upon their blood. Only feed upon their blood. Actually, if it this knowledge, actually no. Without that, actually not. Because one of the big ideas is that when you get shot, let's say for example, I get hit, I take 5 damage. As a vampire, all that's going to occur is my frenzy's going to raise by 5. I'm getting madder. I'm not injured at all. I'm just getting more angry at you, and I'm possibly even more of a threat to you now. As a human, your blood flow is going to go down by 5, which is you've been severely injured. You are now at like a distinct disadvantage. At 0 blood flow, you're just dead. While vampires can technically go as high as they want on their frenzy, they just need to be brought back down eventually, which is the hard part. So that like actual fights between vampires are very complicated because it's more about subdual. Like we need to make sure that you've taken so much damage that like there isn't really anything you can do anymore. It's about making sure that your options are more removed than anything. Did you watch the anime? No, I did not. I've been, this past few days have been a little bit, this past week has been pretty busy. Only feed upon their blood. To stop a. Actually, no. Actually, vampires who have been crippled and So, conflict in Sanguine Nights, and conflict is not as combat is not graceful or chivalrous. It's a bloody exchange of punches, kicks. It's a bloody exchange with one victor at the end. Actually, it's a bloody exchange where both sides savage one another in the vague attempt to save themselves, to ward off the other. There we go. We need to establish what conflict is right off the bat, and I've done the wrong thing. I need to do this. We need to hit this. So, since we're heading 2, what we get to do is heading 3. We need to do heading 3, which is going to be, how do we want to word this? How do we want to actually split combat up in the book? So, I mean, if we do something like, how do we want to do this? So we explain the combat, we explain the conflict phase. What do we need to do next? Next, we need to determine how combat works. Yeah, how combat works. The exchange system, not the exchange system, the counter chart. Actually, the counter. Actually, no, we can do counter combat, because that's how this game actually works. It's counter combat. Actually, savage and counter combat. Savage counter combat. There we go. Actually, Yeah, no, savage counter. I think that's the best way of kind of wording it. Savage counter combat. So we explain how combat works. We have to explain what the actual counters are and how they work with each other, which then leads into the techniques. Actually, we can do, yeah, no, techniques I think would be the best word. Techniques for each of the types. And then we need to explain victory. Actually, we'll do humans and vampires, which is then we're going to lead into determining victory. A victory royale. Determining victory. So okay, so combat is not a conflict. I should say conflict is not a pretty or dignified, or actually no, not a dignified or structured. Actually, conflict is not a dignified or structured series of blows. It's in a series of series of attacks. Rather, it's two forces launching at one another with the intent to inflict harm upon one another in a brutal display of superiority. Combat is split between a series of bouts with each agent who is an active participant. Actually, goddamn, how do I want to do this? Fuck. Actually, okay. In combat, all characters will either be active or passive, active or inactive combatants. Determining if they are actively fighting one another, or keeping to the sidelines to avoid the worst of the combat, or the worst of the battle. Those in active those who are active combatants will be taking part in the combat directly. Though they may tag in or tag out. Though they may influence other inactive combatants to join in the brawl. Combat is split between a series of bouts with each agent who is an active combatant. With each character who is an active combatant. Making a choosing, if I can fucking spell, choosing one of 5 approaches to combat split between a series of bouts with each character who is an active combatant choosing one of 5 approaches for that particular engagement, for that bout. Each character may only select one bout and will only reveal each character may only select one bout, but actually each character may only select one approach, but it will be kept secret until all active combatants have revealed. It will be kept secret until all active combatants have chosen, which then they will be revealed at once. Ugh. Ugh. Why does it sound so awkward? This is a very mechanical game, and my normal writing style does not like this very much. Oh goodness. No, stop sending me things. Let's see, but it will be kept secret until all active combatants are chosen, which then they will be revealed at once. When the approaches have been revealed, it will determine if any of them are countered. Well, it will determine, when the approaches have been revealed. So, this is effectively how it works. In my head, anyway, this is how it works. So, let's say, for example, we've got our 5. If we scroll up here, these are our 5 pretty much basic ones. Which is evasion, defensive, aggression, observation, or instinct. So let's say I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to choose one, you're going to choose another. We look at each other and we're like, okay, I'm choosing evasion. You're like, I choose aggression. Okay. We look here, we realize aggression doesn't beat evasion. Evasion, though, doesn't beat, aggression. We don't counter one another, though. We both look at it being like, cool, I am trying to evade, you're trying to be aggressive. Cool. We're learning. We've done something. Well, let's say, for example, I choose defense, you choose aggression. I beat you. My defense beats your aggression. I have the advantage. However, that does not mean I have a permanent advantage. That's the idea, though. So it's kind of that immediate one where we're revealing at once, which I'm going to have to do. Like, mostly this combat is designed for, like, one-on-one fights. Like, really fast, really quick one-on-one fights that you just go to town on one another and then pull back immediately. That's the entire idea. In, out, in, out. These are little quick bouts. Now, with multiple characters, let's say, for example, the big thing is if it's one versus many, then you all have to beat his card for a counter, and he just has to beat one of your cards to get it, or like one of your things. So let's say, for example, you choose to go, I'm going to go aggressive, I'm going to go I'm going to observe, and I'm going to evade. And he's like, cool, you're going to, be aggressive, you're going to observe, and one's going to evade. I'm going defensive. I've countered the aggressive guy. I've already won. Like, ha ha ha. I've got the counter already. So he now gets an immediate advantage over all of you. So that's why it's like, one thing I want to do is I want to dissuade like multiple combatants just ganging up on one person, because they're going to get an immediate advantage because they affect everybody while you only affect him. You have more individualized actions. He gets, his very few actions affect everybody though. So that's kind of the balancing factor. Hopefully that works that way. Also, I'm using cards for it because that's just kind of what I have on hand. It's like two, so savage, that I'm calling it the savage counter system because that's kind of how I want to do it. It's this quick in, quick out. We've savaged one another, and we roll out. Like, which I need to add an image. I'm going to literally open up Paint, and I'm going to make an image that's going to be, we're going to call it 8. We're going to make it 8 by 4. Actually, no, that's incorrect. I need to make it 4 by 8. I'm going to type in here really fast. Make an explanation. Make an explanation. Bring it down to 48 just so it fits. And we need to make it entirely gray so I don't forget. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to forget and it's going to make me look silly. Always remember. See, I wish there was a way for you to actually like just make like a placeholder image in Google Docs. There probably is. I just don't know what it is, how to do it. But yeah, there we go. Just make an explanation of just counter to counter, back, forth, because I don't want this to be super fast. Actually, I do want it to be super fast, but I don't want it to be really complicated. That's the idea. This became a card game. No, it's not become a card game. It's just easier. I just have a deck of cards next to me, and it's easier for me to represent it. How's the game going? It's been a fucking mess. This game is inadvertently become more complicated as time went on. Not because it's hard, just because it's like how I've given myself a very dedicated set of ideas, and those very dedicated set of ideas are not wanting to flow together very nicely. How this game effectively works, I'll answer your question, is that it is a dice pool system in which you're going to roll a number of dice equal to whatever your attribute is. So let's say, for example, I have 4d6 here. I have an attribute of 4. Let's say I have a +2 to it as well. The big thing is, let's say I need to make my roll. I roll, and normally I would take the 2 highest die. So it's kind of a dice pool roll and keep. I take the 2 highest die, which I have a 6 and a 5, so I rolled an 11. I have a +2, so I'd roll an 11 + 2, so it'd be a 13. If you're empowered, i.e. if something goes right, or you trigger something to become empowered, those D6s, what normally are D6s, become D10s. But only really vampires can become empowered. Thus, your range actually increases quite significantly. So you want to become empowered, but there's usually a cost. The idea behind combat is actually kind of a 3... Did I fuck my mic up? No. The secret behind combat is actually kind of like a 3-step process, you could say, which is it's a choose your approach, compare approach, choose and resolve techniques. That's kind of how it goes. And how the techniques are going to be doing is there's going to be 2 generic ones, which are literally going to be damage the person, block the person. Hey man, what do you do when you start a game? Since I've been hitting a bunch of walls, barely starting some when I start a game, when I fully start up, like making a game, I do stuff like this. I like to get all my pre-notes set up very quickly. And I usually like to know exactly how I'm going to do it before I even start. Like, the thing with this that's actually kind of made my life a little bit complicated inadvertently is a lot of this is already in the game. Everything's here. It's a very simple game that I put a lot of notes in, and I thought there was going to be more, so like I'm thinking there's a lot more than what there actually is, and I keep going back and forth and getting a little bit fucky-wuckied on it. But like, let's say for example, like Void Haunters. This is the idea behind Void Haunters. This is all the information I have on it. I know exactly how this game is going to look, and I know how it's going to kind of flow into one another. Even like little things such as, like Angel 69. Even down to like, hey, here's all my system notes. Here's the setting information. Here's the skirmish size. It's stuff like that. After that, I usually like to make, if you actually really look at any of my games, I have a very dedicated way of how I set them up. I have my preface. I usually do any lore stuff like I feel is important lore. Then I do how you actually play the game. Just raw how you play the game. Character creation, and then the actual game. That is how I do 99% of my games. The ones that I don't do that with are usually the outliers, or there's a very specific reason why. Usually what happens when people hit a wall when they're making a game, and this is what I've noticed over time, is when people say, oh, I've hit a wall, I don't know what I'm doing, it's because they've run into a point where they either didn't plan. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. Give me 1 second. I'll respond. Give me 2 seconds. Hello, I am alive. Okay, kind of getting back to the original topic at hand. Big idea is always pre-plan everything, and what happens usually when people don't know what's going on, and when you get lost, it's you didn't plan ahead for it. Or if you did plan ahead for it, it's not, things change. And any writer will tell you this. You know, you might start with a very clear idea, but you hit a certain point, things just change, they'll escalate, things edit as along the way. And if you don't have a plan in case for it, it's going to feel like a wall that you kind of just need to go over. Bonds were in that. There were, in this game, in my notes, bonds were never part of it. But I needed a justification for how drama scenes were going to play out. So what I did was Add in bonds, give it a little bit more. I would say, like, you don't need to plan for everything. This is the big thing. You don't need to, like, here's every single thing I need to do in the exact order. No, 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 no. What I'm saying is, oh goodness, you need to plan to know exactly kind of the direction you want to go in. As it's kind of like, it's, like, as solid, like, what do you want from the game? How do you want to do it? And it's like, hey, this game is about boats. I need to put in mechanics about boats, and I need to kind of plan ahead for the fact that boats are present. Shit like that. Is that really what you need to do? That's kind of the idea. Like, it's usually what happens, again, it's when you hit a roadblock of some variety, it's something that wasn't planned ahead for, or something came up that you didn't know about, or you look at something, it's like, this isn't how it was supposed to go. Like, the numbers aren't, numbers aren't adding up, the ideas aren't adding up, kind of like that. For context of what that, like, 20-minute conversation was, my mother called. She wanted to say hello. She told her coworkers about my extensive pornographic writing credits, and the fact that I write fetish RPGs, which is unfortunately not incorrect, all to her coworker to literally dunk on another coworker, and now her coworker is very fascinated in everything I do. This is not the first time she's lied about this. Like, it is a known fact that she has lied multiple times to people about me and my two of my friends being her sons, just so she has leverage over people about having more kids. This is my life. I love my mother to death. She is like me and a chronic liar. It's like, mama, please. Mama, please. She is like me. She's a very dramatic person, and I love her to death for it. But she's a very dramatic person, and everything has to be a little bit bigger than what it is. And I try to keep myself fairly restrained on some things, but yeah, sometimes I like stretch the truth on some matters, or things get a little bit odd. She just outright lies to people, and the story keeps escalating every time because, again, she has a very bad tendency of equating what I do here with things like, oh, you work on video games, right? And it's like, there's one guy in my building, actually, that she talked to quite a bit, who wants me to join his Discord server at this point because she convinced him that I play Rust. I do not play Rust. And he's like, oh my god, I love RPG games. You make the RPG games? Cool. I would want to play Rust with you. It's like, it's like, cool, awesome, thanks, Mom. Big help. Also, to answer some of the other little questions, is there an idea would needs its own Let's see, is there a game I would like to play but not covered as a TRPG? Is there any idea, story, or world that needs its own TRPG? I can answer that very simply to you. I can answer that question very simple. I have no idea why Ankama has never thought about putting out a fucking Wakfu RPG. They never have. Not once. Just give me a fucking Wakfu Dofus. I'll go for Dofus. Dofus isn't as cool as Wakfu, but I will go for that as the TTRPG. It does not exist, and I do not know why. And it's not like Ankama doesn't have the fucking money to do this. It's Ankama. They're a big fucking company, actually. Just give me what I fucking want. It's all I want. It's not hard. Even though the later bits of the Wakfu show got a little bit funky. But the worst part is, I know exactly why they will not actually adapt things over. Because it's the same issue of, like I've always said about Wakfu RPGs in general. is nobody knows what the fuck they want from this, because there's technically 3 varieties of it, and nobody. If you ask 100 people what they want from a fucking walkthrough RPG, they will give you 100 different answers, and that is the ultimate sin. There you go. Yeah, I love my mom. I love my mom to death. She is a very. We're both very quiet people. But she just likes. Sometimes she likes to talk to people who she likes, and she'll just make shit up about me. People think I'm like this really cool, fascinating person. I'm not. I'm a very dull person. I have made my mark on life of being a very quiet person. You know, I think that because that's how it rolls here. Yeah, like, I'll give you a hint. Like, the whole VTuber thing, like, all this is because I am cripplingly afraid of showing my face, and because you gotta remember, way back in the day, if you watch all the old videos, it was like this. Let me just. It was literally just this, with even less, yeah, and I was a lot more quiet back then. It's funny, because I've, like, realized over time, I've gone back to watch some of my older videos, and I'm very quiet. I'm very direct with how I do things. I'm like, yes, this is what we're going to be doing here, and this is how I do things here. Like, I don't go on these tangents at all. Like, but let's see, so... Where were we? Savage counter combat, techniques. What we need to do is technique. We'll do techniques. Actually, the counters and approaches and counters. Misspelled counters because I'm a fucking idiot. So. There are a total of 5 approaches an agent can choose when they enter a conflict. These 5 each approach is tied to a blood. Each approach is tied to a blood type, as well as having a set of unique techniques associated with them. Each approach is tied to a blood type, as well as having a set of unique techniques associated with them. When selecting approach, vampires are. When selecting an approach, the agent must consider both their ability, the enemy's ability, their opponent's ability, as well as what they seek to accomplish with it. However, each approach has a counter approach. If the counter approach is chosen by the enemy, how do I want to word this? Each approach has a counter approach, something which counters or nullifies the effects something which grants the counter. Each approach has its own counter. When an agent chooses an approach which counters their their opponent, we'll just say their opponents, they will have the advantage. 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 They will actually. They will have an. They'll have an advantage over them in the initial advantage over them innately. So, for example, our 5 approaches are very simple. It's defense, aggression, observation, evasion, instinct. A is tied to evasion, B to defense, O to aggression, A, B to observation, and V to instinct. So, how do we want to write this in? Half of me says it's like, I should actually put in an image. That would be like the best way to explain it. And what I may do, what I'm going to do anyway, is I'm going to put a 10 by 10 fucking gray blob in the middle of everything. I'm going to hit my text box, and we're going to do a counter approach wheel of fortune. The approach wheel. Going to be I'm going to say it's a wheel, but it's not really a wheel. It's going to be more like an approach circle. Over them innately. So, however, each has their own approach. We need to do that as normal text. Let's see, appropriate, which counters it. They'll bounce over them immediately. If an opponent, actually, if the approach is no, we'll do if an agent and the opponent select two approaches which do not counter one another, they'll both select one technique. They'll both select one technique. If an agent if an agent counters an opponent's approach, they will have two techniques. Let's say we'll have 2 techniques. Next, the agent and opponent. Next, the agent and the opponent will make an opposed. They'll make an opposed check with the blood type of their approach. We'll make an opposed check with the blood type of their approach. Called the how do we want to do this? Actually, called the initiative check. Whoever sees it, whoever is successful has the initiative, which grants them an additional technique. In the bout. And next we're going to put out a little table, because we like little tables, and that table is going to be 2 by 2. We can do something like this, flap it in the corner, and then we're going to do approach, and then it would be approach and then blood type, if I can fucking spell properly. So the approach is defense, aggression, evasion, observation, evasion, instinct, which means evasion is A, observation is A, B, aggression is O, and defense is B, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah, B, and instinct is obviously V. Which does the big thing here. This is one of the big things. If you are a human and you attempt to do this, you are going to automatically lose. is this just rock, paper, scissors. A little bit more of advanced rock, paper, scissors in a way. Because what's going to occur? This is the hardcore mathematics behind it. Is everyone's going to be selecting a series of techniques. These are things that are going to occur if you do it. It's going to be things like, I'm going to attack you, I'm going to do a lot of damage to you, I want to block the damage coming at me, I want to just nullify all the damage coming toward me because I evaded, or, you know, I want to reposition myself. It's things like that. It's very much like, I get to choose what I want to do if I get to do this. However, these are all of the possible results that can occur, which is someone is always going to have two options to one, which is usually going to be like, for example, I succeed. Let's say we're making a roll. I'm making a evasion versus. Okay, we'll do this. We'll do a defense, aggression, and observation, for example. If I'm rolling defense, let's say I choose defense, you choose observation. My defense is B, observation is AB. We roll. I succeed. I have two techniques, you have one technique. Cool. We select what we do, it immediately resolves. However, let's say, for example, I go defense, you go aggressive. I beat you right off the bat. I get two techniques to your one, then we roll. If I succeed the roll, I get 3 techniques to your 1. If you succeed the roll, we both get 2. So it's kind of like one of those things, like, even if they choose something that counters you, if they're just better at it than you, you're still going to take a little bit of a penalty because you lost, but it's more along the line like, I'm doing something correct versus you. So there's a little bit of rock, paper, scissors to it, but the fact that there's 5 does mean it's not just going to be you succeed or fail every time. There is a chance for a null result, effectively. You know, for example, if you choose aggression and someone else goes instinct, nothing's going to happen. There's always going to be 2 options which aren't countered or countered, and there's always going to be two options which are counters you or you counter. And technically, if you select both, nothing occurs either. So technically, there's 3 options. So there's a little bit more to it, but yeah, effectively it boils down to a rock, paper, scissors aspect. It would be like more like rock, paper, scissors, gun, because you got to remember this right here. Humans operate on the same thing, but the best way to think about that is that they have they have second priority over everything. Human versus human, if I choose to go defensive, you choose to go aggressive, I'm going to do something, you get to do something. A little bit different. However, we're applying human logic to things. However, this is where things get a little bit wonky. If a vampire does something, let's say a vampire goes aggressive, I choose defensive, they're still going to beat me because they're a fucking vampire and they're just going to go first. They're going to immediately murk me before I can do anything. All my shit takes second priority to them, which is why vampires are really scary versus humans. And that's why, like, a single vampire, once they frenzy, they are very dangerous. And that's why I want to get across, that they are very dangerous. However, most of the time it's going to be, again, vampire versus vampire, human versus human, with various outcomes of what can beat what. But if a human ever tries to roll instinct, they don't roll anything. You're going to lose the initiative. Simply because it's instinct, it's going completely off V-Blood, which humans do not have access to. Their V-Blood is 0. They roll no dice for it. They will never roll any dice for it. But here's the thing. If you're trying to go evasive, let's say, for example, you're trying to be defensive, and if I go instinct, I'm still going to be able to get 2 actions out of you. I'm already getting free because I beat you. Because I chose the right option. You're going to get 2 actions as well because you're effectively rolling against 0. But, it's instead of just taking 0, instead of taking null or just having 1 action, I get to have 2 actions. So it's kind of that idea, like, humans can choose to always go instinct, but it's not really useful to them. However, again, it's a mind game, which is one of the big ideas. Is I want you to be able to piece together the person and understand, like, okay, we know this guy is really aggressive. He's hopped up on fucking O-Blood. He's going to be really aggressive. We know that he's going to be really fucking aggressive. Do we want to go defensive on him a lot? Is like we're making a very clear idea, being like he keeps going full aggressive. Do we want to go defensive, or do we want to go do other things? Because we know we can counter him pretty reliably with that. Or God help us all, like why? Like, but now going observation is kind of a risky play because he's going to get an advantage over you, and he's already going to be rolling pretty high. Yeah. Aggression, defense, observation, and our blood type. So, which I can actually do. What I'm going to do here actually is we're going to insert a table, and I'm just going to be doing a side note, the math behind this. Which is going to be this may appear initially as rock paper scissors. However, there is a little bit of nuance behind it in the form of the initiative check. During combat, there are exactly three outcomes between two characters, based on the number of techniques they receive. It's going to be 1v2, 2v2, 2v2, or 1v3. Someone is always going to be at a disadvantage. However, the understanding of what others are strong or weak against is going to influence a choice. If the player knows that an enemy has high O-Blood, they may want to go defensive more often, as suddenly the aggressive benefit of going aggressive tied to O-Blood, as suddenly the benefit of going aggressive tied to O-Blood is nullified with 2v2 techniques. So it's kind of like one of those understandings of like, if you know what they're going, you can counter them, but if you know what you're strong with, you may be able to double counter them, especially if you fuck with them. That's the big advantage you want is a 1v3. You want to not only counter them, but you want to beat them at their own will. Which is like, haha, I'm super strong in A, and I'm gonna hit you. If you beat them on that, you get 3 techniques. So I need to make the techniques pretty impressive. Have you ever made an XDX plus mod system? Let's see. XDX plus mod. If you want to be strictly specific, technically, Androdesis Dissonance does do something like that, but that's a dice pool. Fist of Chaos does do something like that. There is some notes of that in... Where is it? Some vague notes, I mean, in Monster Girl Adventures. Not many, but it's there. Technically, if you want to be really specific, and I mean really specific, where is it? I always lose it. Chungsha. By sheer technicality, Chungsha also does that quite a bit. Not nearly as much, but it's still there. It has some flavors of it. Style Combat also does that quite a bit, with like Euducius Lux, and technically Granbelm as well. Because yeah, remember I wrote a fucking game called Granbelm Dancing in the Midnight Realm? Yeah, based off a shitty mech anime that I actually really enjoy for no particular reason. XDX would be like, I think the best way to think about it is like, which would be XD like 10, or, you know, XD8 or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So it's kind of like a dice ladder, in a way. Yeah, no, this is the basic idea of like, I'll just put this way: defense beats aggression, aggression beats observation, observation beats evasion, evasion beats instinct, instinct beats defense. Which I'm gonna have to write up the approach wheel, like what counters what. If anything, I'll just get my friend to do it again. Is there any other keynotes that I want to get in here? Oh. Excuse me. However, I should say humans approaches and vampires. Human approaches and vampires. We're going to make this heading 4. Yes, this is going to be heading 4. It's not really like in a super like detailed section, but I need to talk about it. Humans, actually, I can make this heading 3. You know what? Fuck it. The handler is a human. The handler is a human, and occasionally the various enemies may also be humans of some, may also be humans or other unaugmented individuals. Vampires move quickly while frenzied, and during combat, this is only further how do we want it? Only further actually further highlighted. Vampires move quickly and while frenzied, and during combat this is only further highlighted. When a human fights, actually when humans fight, they will use the same method as dictated above. They'll use the same method dictated above. However, they will always score a 0 if they choose instinct. The sole advantage being that you can counter defensive approaches. and then choose if they choose instinct. If they are fighting a vampire, a vampiric agent engaging a human trafficker just as much as a rogue vampire targeting the handler, their approach is considered secondary. When this means that the vampire's approach will always take priority and cannot be countered by the human. Always take priority and cannot be countered by the human. Cannot be countered by a human. However, the vampire can still counter a human's approach. And can still counter a human's approach. All techniques used by the vampire will resolve first. Then the humans will. Rather than both techniques resolving simultaneously. This can mean that a human opponent can immediately perish before. This does mean a human opponent can immediately perish before they are able to react. So the entire idea is that if it's a vampire versus vampire, they resolve simultaneously, and you hurt each other, you're going down. Human versus human, everything resolves simultaneously. We hurt each other, bang, 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 we're done. Human versus vampire, the vampire is going to resolve first, then you're going to resolve. Which they might have countered you, which then means they just get more techniques. Or especially if they just choose not to. But they can always get something more on you if they choose to go instinct. That's the big thing. If a vampire chooses instinct over you, they will almost always get an advantage because they're going to be able to roll versus 0, which is an automatic success. As a vampire, you have a lot more options. As a human, you have a lot fewer options. However, you have the distinct advantage of being able to go out into the sun. And humans have quite a few disadvantages in this situation, but there's a good reason for it. Because mostly, one of the major characters that you have to work with is technically a human. The handler is human, and this does apply to them. So if they get into a fight with the vampire, the handler's going to get fucking murked almost immediately. Thus, like, as a vampire, you're kind of more encouraged to protect them, which does make things a little bit... The power dynamic is very strange. Because you need the handler. The handler is what's going to make sure that you can survive this. However, the handler is incredibly fragile. So it's like, I want to keep the handler alive, but I know that but they are the least qualified person to be here. So playing a handler does mean like you're not really going to get into fights all that often, but yours is a very dedicated support role. You have a lot of power over these guys by the virtue of being the only person who can really buff them reliably to make sure they can win fights more reliably. That's the big idea. And it's like, oh, okay. Handler-san does have a lot more going on for them. Can vampires charm people? One thing I do plan on adding in are things like down here is the hemo manipulation techniques, which is vampire powers. That's effectively what they're going to be. with each vampire is going to receive like pretty much at start. I'm thinking like you can choose up to like 3 powers that you just have, and it's things like, yeah, I can charm people. If I spend a frenzy, this person's a lot more friendly toward me, or I get a big bonus to it. Or hey, if I spend a frenzy, then I get to do this. Or it's like, hey, if it's better exchange rates. It's allowing you to do things that you may not be able to. The big thing though is that the handler is actually the one with the injections. That's the big idea, and the injections are going to be the thing that actually augment your stats, which is their big advantage. So yeah, vampires can do quite a few different things, but they have a lot more to manage. That's the idea. And you're always kind of you never have enough with the vampire. That's the biggest issue. You do not have enough. You never will. Yeah. Approaches in conflict, which leads to humans approaches in vampires, which immediately leads me into the techniques. Technique is a pleasant way to state the intended goal of a combatant when they launch at one another. During most bouts, techniques are less thought out and more reaction based reflexes. Each active combatant will choose a number of techniques equal to the number they have amassed. Equal to the number they have amassed from their approach, as well as initiative check. As well as their initiative check. The techniques available are limited to the approach, as well as to generic ones, which can be used by any approach. Which we're going to do the generic ones, which we need to do this, which the idea behind these is do we really all have everything here? Yeah, we have everything we need here. Ow. The vampire e-girl and her army of simps. Like, one of the ideas behind that is like, yeah, is there probably a girl out there who with her like complete army of simps who is just being like, look at me, I'm cueing the vampire girl, look how adorable I am. Yes, and that would be kind of funny in its own way, being like, yes, this is a woman who has completely like subverted the ideas of a lot of her followers to do some things that aren't very nice. That could be an interesting investigation unto itself of like, hey, these guys keep committing crimes in your name. Can you please stop them? You're like, lol, no. Like, son of a bitch. Like, you bitch. Especially when the thing is, you don't really want to kill people. That's one of the big things too, is like, you don't want to hurt people because that's kind of fucked up thing to do. We actually want to do a, actually, we're going to do strike. Actually, the agent strikes the target, dealing one damage, and we're going to do block the agent. The agent defends themselves, blocking 1 damage. These are the generic ones. These are supposed to be like very like universal. Like you will always be able to strike and you will always be able to block an opponent. These aren't really efficient though. That's kind of the idea. They are not efficient. And you don't really want to use these ones unless it's like, well, I have the advantage and I'm like, I'm going to, block or whatever. Actually, equal to each technique can only be used once unless specified by a power or the technique itself. And the thing is, you'll always have enough. Even if you have 3, you can always choose 1. You can always have you always are able to do something. Which means we have 5 techniques to go over, in which I want each of them to have about 4. That's my goal anyway. So actually we're going to do aggression. We'll do aggression techniques. Which we're going to do savage. Dealing 2 damage. Yeah, again, that's what I mean. Like, it's just double more efficient. For the same thing, you can savage opponent twice, which can actually can actually, how do I want to do this? It's if you have 3 techniques, you can savage twice, dealing 4 damage, which is quite a bit of damage, by the way. Like, that's quite a bit. Which actually we can do. Again, these are aggression. Being aggressive means you're all about doing big damage, being really aggressive, and we're going to actually do. Actually, what we can do is bite the agent. Bites down on their target. They dealing 1 damage. Restore blood. If a vampire, restore 1 blood flow. Reduce 1 blood flow. Increase frenzy by 1. Increase blood flow by, actually I should say increase, if a vampire, increase blood flow by 1, increase frenzy by 1. Or like, yeah, if you're a human and you can just choose to bite somebody, which is just you biting down on someone, because again, one of the most valuable techniques you could do in a fight is not in a weird way, but like, honestly, that's really efficient. Our jaw is designed to bite into things. Not great, but it's definitely there. And it's been proven time and time again. It's very efficient to fucking bite into somebody because it's going to hurt like hell. Let's see. We want to savage someone. We're going to bite somebody. We're going to... So let's think. So this is the entire idea, is that I'm trying to just leap at you with the intent of just beating the shit out of you. I want to hurt you. Actually, let's see, dealing 1 damage and inflicting and inflicting. Healing 1 damage. Target makes a. It would be. I guess physicality. So beatdown's useful if you just have it kind of, you know, you're stronger. Makes a physicality check. TN it'd be pretty average. We'll say TN like 10. That's a little bit easier. Like, it's not complicated to actually get a 10. They fail, they take an additional 2 damage, which we're also going to do. I think adding toss would be a good idea. Toss the... Okay, they move to a new feature. There we go. They move to a new feature, which makes we're going to need to move on to the defense techniques. Defense technique, which is going to be guard, which is the agent. The agent defends themselves fully, blocking 2 damage. Wow, which is going to be then counter hit. If the agent prepares a counter. If they take damage this bout, they deal 1 damage to the target. And the idea being like, I've been hit, I'm gonna hit you, but I might take 4 damage, you're gonna take 1, without really that efficient. But still, like, because again, you might be able to select 2, 3 of these, so you might be like, oh, I'm just going to take this and be like, okay, I'm doing fine, which is how do I want to do? The agent binds the target in a hold. Actually, the agent attempts to bind target in a hold. Make it opposed. I don't know, what skills are we looking with here? Make me actually, if you're defensive, let me think. Well, you're offensive. Let's see. Make in opposed. Making it opposed. B blood type. Blood type. Fucking so blood type B type. Make an opposed blood type B check. If successful, the target takes 1 damage. Takes 1 damage. The target either takes 1 damage or loses a technique. So it's kind of like, okay, I made a grapple. Like, you can either choose, like, I'm going to take 1 damage, or I'm going to lose a technique. So it's kind of like, I'm at a disadvantage here. Like, I've done some move. But actually, we need to make a target makes a blood type A check. Blood type A check, TN 10. Not very difficult. Actually, no, this is O. Actually, beatdown is opposed by, blood type O check. If failed, they take an additional 2 damage. Torso toss up a new feature, which brings us to the technique, which is going to be Stand Ground. Stand Ground. The agent cannot be moved for this. Cannot be moved for this bout. If any cannot be moved for this bout. There we go. These are just. I need to get these down on paper more than anything. I deal with the Baby Herbert cases, aka 150-year-old kid vampires. I do actually have, this is one of those like setting notes I have written down, but I just don't know where to put it. One of the big things about this is that after you hit a certain age, you pretty much gain 20 years. At about, I believe a century, you actually pretty much age 20 years from where you are currently. So if you get turned into a vampire when you're 15, by the time you hit 100, you're going to look about 35. That's one thing to kind of note about. The second big note is, A, it's incredibly illegal literally everywhere now to, like, unless they are above the age of consent, you should not turn them. Big no-no. The other big thing is they are as long as they have proper documentation saying that they are above age, they are technically treated as an adult. If they do not have the proper documentation, they are not going to be treated as an adult. They're going to be treated as a minor. However, this also goes both ways, where it's like if you see the 150-year-old vampire child with somebody, they are going to have to pull out that documentation immediately to make sure they're, whoever they're with doesn't go to fucking jail. However, also one of those things, if they try something, being like, oh, well, I'm just a kid or whatever, and, this person clipping on me, if they pull up your documentation, you're going to go to jail for false imprisonment, effectively. It's one of those things, like, there's a way to solve the issue. However, nobody wants to deal with it. Like, it's a very, like, kind of case by case, just don't do it situation. As for incredibly young kids, like, pretty much, it's like, if you're below the age of 10, you'll just die if you ingest vampire blood. There's probably a 99% chance if you're below the age of about 10, 12, your body will just reject it outright. You'll vomit up blood as all your organs fail and you collapse on the ground dead. It's like, well, shit. That's how I'm dealing with it. You fucking die. Again, usually it's like, oh, I'm a teenage vampire. I'm like 13 years old, but I'm secretly 150, being like, congratulations. You still have to pay taxes, ma'am. We have you on record. We know how. Have vampires? Completely impossible. That's one of those big setting notes, which is like, can vampires have children? No, they cannot. The biological functions do not allow it. They do not actually register. Like, the body does not register that. The big case being, like, what happens if a pregnant woman gets turned, and it's not fun. It's not fun for anybody involved, is what happens. Like, that, the child is fucked. Let's just say that. The child is fucked. Blade does not occur. But it's one of those jokes, in setting would be like, things like Blade become incredibly popular. Because Blade is an exception case. He's something exceptional. He is this badass half vampire who's super cool and awesome. And things like, yeah, Blade becomes infinitely more popular because the vampires fucking love him. Because he's cool and he fights evil vampires and he's super awesome. That's the entire thing with it. He's this super cool dude who's just super cool. Kind of like one of the things, like, if again, infinite time, infinite effort, it would effectively be Blade becomes one of the most popular Marvel properties available. Like, we're still seeing Blade movies be made simply because there's an entire brand new demographic of people who just adore Blade. But yeah, like, have vampires? No. Werewolf vs. Vampire? Werewolf vs. Vampire. Fun fact, there is actually a, the next game of this is going to be Savage Nights and, like, Feral Curses, I think that's what I ended up calling it. Which is all about werewolves. Werewolves and vampires don't get along, but it's the same way that they don't get along because one's blood does not like the other. It's two mutually exclusive diseases that if one infects the other, they'll just die. So it's like your body is like, hey, don't get close to that thing, it'll kill you. While the other's like, don't get close to that thing, it'll kill you. But like a vampire and a werewolf sitting in a cafe, they can just have coffee together and they'll be fine with each other. Their bodies don't like each other very much, but it's like, yeah, we're fine with each other. Like, there's nothing wrong. Oh yeah, ghouls? No ghouls. None of that. Pretty much, if the big thing is how you actually turn into a vampire is that you have to ingest vampire blood. If you ingest vampire blood in ideal conditions, you have about a 50% chance of becoming a vampire and 50% chance of all your organs failing and dying. Vampirism is not fun. It's a disease, and all it is your body's blood effectively being infected with what can best be described as super leukemia, except it gives you superpowers instead of cancer. After werewolf, we get wizards. I was debating on which one I wanted to do next, because the idea is I want to use the same system for everything. It may not be wizard. I might make the joke that no wizards just aren't there. That again, that's one of those little setting notes. I don't know where to put it. But it's like, yeah, hey, you have cancer. You are not going to live. You have two options. We can pretty much inject you with vampire blood. You're going to need to literally find somebody who's willing to donate. Yeah, pretty much the big thing was you need to find somebody that you trust that is willing to donate to you. And we will do the injection and we will see if you turn into a vampire or not. But you will live. That's the big thing. You'll live. Diseases don't work. If you have leukemia and this is the last option effectively. We can try to turn you into a vampire. But it's also remember, you still have about a 50% chance of dying. So it's are you willing to take that risk and sign a shit ton of these waivers and it's not make sure whoever you're working with is okay with the chance of them killing you. And it's not a fun death either. It's not a painless one. No, it is your organs fail. Over the course of about an hour, your organs will fail and you will die. But it's this is a last chance. Which is, again, one of those things in the setting that I would like to kind of talk about. It's kind of hard to put in. Where do you put this? I might literally put a little side note table being here's a shit ton of this setting notes that I think are cool, but I can't put anywhere. Because yeah, it's not cool, but it's hey, you don't need to eat food anymore. You eat blood. But KM blood is very common at this point. You can get a case of KM blood for effectively $20. And that's going to set you up for about 2 weeks. $20 is going to feed you for 2 weeks. $50 is going to feed you for a month. Yeah, you find in work sometimes hard, but it's yeah, find some midnight stuff. But again, it's been 40 years and people have adapted. There are midnight services that people love hiring vampires because they can work hours that normal people wouldn't want to work. There's a way to do it. You want to drink good, then yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit, but being a vampire sucks. But living in the 21st century sucks. How will Immortal affect the stock market? Well, the thing is it doesn't really. Yeah, you can play the stocks all you want, but it's well, the the rapid expansion of the market, you know, being immortal can't stop the bear market as it just slams down. It's like, yeah, no, it's like one of those things where it's like, yes, you're a vampire. Like, you are kind of expected to know some things. Like, yeah, you're the head of a company. You have been the head of a company for like the 60 years, and everyone knows that you're a weird-ass vampire who does things, and everyone's like, cool. However, the stock market does not change its hours, though. It's one of those things, like, 40 years have gone by since pretty much vampires were found, and in those 40 years, things got really boring for them. They're regular people. They do the regular people things. Because the big idea is that KM blood is artificial blood that kind of evens them out. Like, 95% of vampires do not frenzy. They don't. There's no reason for them. And it was like the oldest vampire currently to date, it's like in like 900, so like I think he's like, I think I put him at about 1,000. Actually, no, it was 900, that was it. But the problem with him is like he's 900 years old, but he's been literally he's been in hospice for the past 700, as people have just been taking care of him. Let's see. We want to move to evasion. Let's see, the agent moves to a new, what did I end up calling it? Moves to a new feature. How do we want to word this? Evasion, because the entire idea behind evasion is it's avoidance of dandelion. It's pretty much you are avoiding damage. Which is the agent strike a target while protecting themselves. They make an opposed a blood type check. Make an opposed a blood type check. If successful, deal 2 damage. If successful, deal 2 damage. So it's kind of like they get a free kind of strike, or they can just be like, I'm going to do like 1 damage. But it's like, yeah, that's like. Actually, no, we want to do, what would be, panic, fuck, what's its, actually, no. Duck and weave, the agent attempts to mitigate all harm towards that, mitigates all, attempts to mitigate additional harm toward them. Make an opposed check of, it would be A, right? Yeah, make an Make an opposed check of A versus targets blood approach blood type if successful, ignore one technique or block 3 damage. So it's kind of like the idea of like duck and weave. You're going to make a check. If you succeed on it, which you should have a good advantage on it, you're going to be able to just ignore it. You're like, I'm going to duck and weave. Like, I've done this. So I'm going to block it, or I'm going to attempt to maneuver out of the way. It's kind of like I've already selected a few. Like, okay, I've got 3 evasion techniques. I want to dodge, I want to duck and weave, and I want to strike. I'm going to do 1 damage. I'm going to avoid 1 technique completely, and then I'm going to duck and weave, which is, ducking and weaving is good. If you're getting completely if you are fucked, you're going to probably want to duck and weave. But if you're against 1 person, if you go evasion, you have 3 techniques, and you know, let's say for example you have 2v2. If you dodge, you're going to be able to get a good advantage on them. But if you have 3, they have 1, just dodge. If you're doing evasion, you dodge the attack, and then you're allowed to do 2 other things because you just have a clear advantage over them. Please let there be Frankenstein, people. Promethean will still remain one of the best old New World of Darkness things, and I will stand by Promethean till my dying breath. You need to do Instinct, because I really liked it. Instinct, which we're going to do Power Trigger. We should do, yeah, a Power Trigger. The agent, actually the Vampire Agent, triggers a vampiric power. A vampiric power they possess. We want to do dodge roll. Actually, what we can do is we'll do a panic block, which is going to be the agent blocks 1 damage. If the agent is a vampire, blocks 2 damage. So it's a little bit, so kind of like the idea behind Instinct is that it's like, if you are a vampire, you're going to get an advantage over this, which is going to be actually we can do reactive block. Actually, we want to do this would be, so power trigger, like you're triggering a vampiric power. Reactive block is blocking 1 damage. If you're a vampire, you get to block 2 damage. This is going to be the heavy hit. It's kind of like, I'm going to hit you. I'm going to hit you with the sole intent of beating, like just bashing you. Actually, that's what we call it bash. Do I have anything else? Yeah, no. Bash the agent. Deal 1 damage to the target if the yeah, pretty much I'm thinking I'm gonna have to put in like conditions or something. By putting conditions, I think I can probably make this a little bit smoother. I can probably do a little bit more, but I don't have conditions right now, so this is what it is, what we have so far, and what I'm going to be working with. So, instinct. Vision, which we want to do the agent. actually, what we can do is flee. The agent makes a dedicated effort to leave the combat. Leaves the combat. They will make an V type. They'll make a V blood type. Make a V blood type opposed check. They'll make a V blood type opposed check with the target's current approach blood type. So a vampire can almost always escape from a person. That's the big idea. A person, yeah, sometimes may not be able to escape from a vampire. That's one of the big ideas. Like, actually, alternative approach blood type if the target attempts to stop them. There we go. Which brings us to our final one, which is observation. Vision, which we're going to do. The agent. Gains a +2 to their next check. See an opening. The agent has a +1 to their neck, +1 to their damage if they deal damage this bout. That's the big see an opening. If they deal damage, they're going to do +1 to their damage. So pretty much it's like, I'm going to observation, and then you're going to have to do like 2 damage. You're effectively spending 2 techniques to observe. It's not really that great. Size up, size up. Size attempts to analyze the target's current state. They may the agent learns one blood type's current value. The target's frenzy, or the target's blood flow. Which is going to be then I don't want to do this. How do I want to word this? Because this one's going to be effectively a little bit more defensive. This is your learning one. This is the big idea behind this. This is all about learning about your opponent a little bit more than like, okay, I need to figure out what they're doing, how they're going to do it. Actually, no, Gambit. After the agent has during the next bout, the agent may select two techniques. Actually, no, may select 2 approach. During the next bout, the agent may select 2 approaches and choose the one they wish. You have to spend an entire technique to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You might not do no damage, but next time you're going to be able to be like, okay, if I know you're choosing aggression, I can, actually choose which one they wish, after choose which one they wish after the approaches have been revealed. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna gambit. So like you put down yours, they put down 2, and you both flip, and like I've gone defensive, and they're like I've gone aggressive, and I've gone observation. You're like, fuck you, I'm gonna go observation again, and like, oh, I'm gonna do see an opening and didn't do this, or gambit again. But again, you're using techniques to do this. It's a very limited resource that you can use. Okay, so limited to approaches as well, 2 generic ones can be used by any approach. I'm probably going to add in, I think I'm going to have to add in like a condition system. What that condition system is, I do not know how I'm going to do that yet. I have a few ideas. I think the idea is going to be more about the manipulation of dice. Like, oh, if you are crippled, you're taking a -1 to your dice pool. If you are this, you're going to take, like, your empowered state doesn't count. Or if you are it's a lot more about the manipulation of the dice rather than like a strict, like, you have a -5 or whatever. Something like that. I think that would be a little bit more better. I might swing that around for the other ones. But yeah, generally speaking, this is what we're working with. Which, if we go here, which is going to be actually what we need to do is I need to someone is asking that they should pee-pee poo-poo in my chat. No. There will be no pee-pee poo-poo poo-poo in my chat. There will be no pee-pee poo-poo here. There is no pee-pee poo-poo. So, we want to do winning and losing a combat. Damage is calculated after all techniques have been chosen. The damage and effects are all calculated. Damage and effects are all calculated. All damage is redirected. Damage will reduce a human's blood flow, while damage can either increase a vampire's frenzy, or while damage increases a vampire's frenzy. If a human's blood flow reaches 0, then they have reached a critical state and are quickly bleeding to death on the ground. However, a vampire's frenzy can technically arise as high as possible. So how does a vampire lose a fight? And how does a vampire lose a fight? Being crippled. Being crippled. Vampires after sustaining 5 damage. Vampires after sustaining 5 damage will begin to slow down. And limp. Will begin to slow down. If they were to take 10 damage over They will take 10 damage overall. They will be knocked. Actually, fuck. How do we want to do this? Instinct. Actually, no. V Blood does not want to perish. After sustaining 6 damage, the vampire will be inflicted with will have. I will actually have the. How do I want to word this? Actually, we'll have the endangered condition. We're just gonna add conditions now, I guess. Fuck it. I was saying 6 damage vampire of the endangered condition after endangered condition. When they have the endangered condition, they may only choose the evade. They may only choose all options, all techniques. Actually, no, how do I want to do this? Fuck. How do I want to do this? Fuck, how do I want to do this? How does a vampire lose his fight? Because this is one of the core ideas, is that your frenzy's raising up to a certain point, and you might become starving, which means that, you know, bad things are happening. How do you actually lose a fight, though? Unless you take absurd damage, like you just are crippled and out of the fight completely. It's like you've actually no, that's what we can do. Getting crippled. If a vampire sustains 5 damage. Actually, if a vampire sustains 5 fuck. How do I want to do this? Because one of the ideas is that they're frenzy, so frenzy equal health. However, the idea being blood flow is, if blood flow is ever lower than frenzy, you become starving. But starving makes you a over frenzy, which means you're starving, but starving makes you a stronger fighter. Okay, actually, lose a fight. Instinct. When a vampire reaches the starving state, their body will desire to leave the battle. They don't want to die, and their blood is telling them to leave. If they don't want to die and their blood is telling them to leave. During this, the vampire will need to make a V blood type check at target number. We'll select 8. Target number 8, and then we reason by 4, 16, 20, 24, and like the idea is like this exponential. Target number 12 to resist immediately fleeing the combat. And immediately fleeing the combat, because again, you're a feral fucking creature. We'll make it easy. Immediately fleeing the combat. The vampire will need to sustain the difficulty to remain in combat will increase by +2 for every additional bout. They'll make the check at the end of each bout. They will make the check at the end of each bout. So it's kind of like the idea of being like you're always leaving, but you know, kind of if the longer you can stay that way, the better, because the stronger you're gonna get. If a vampire is fully cornered, it will fight until it is not able, until it is no longer able to. During the climax phase, which we're gonna have to add a climax phase now. During the climax phase. During the climax phase, no vampire can retreat. No vampire can retreat. Instead, if they take double their current. Actually, let's see. Instead, if they take 20 damage. Instead, if they take 20 damage. This is gonna need some significant reworking. I don't know about this one yet, Chief. Like, one of the ideas behind Frenzy is that is literally your blood is telling you to go fucking sicko mode. Because it's hungry. It's hungry and it's scared. Because the entire idea is that the infection, the disease the vampire has, is just, it's a blood disease. That's all it is. And Frenzy is caused by, hey, the blood in your system is reacting poorly. It's hungry, it's scared, it doesn't want to die. So it's causing you to go insane. So it's like, the more damage you sustain, the higher it's going to go. However, at a certain point, like, your body just doesn't want to go. It's constantly trying to protect itself. So anytime you take damage as a vampire, instead of like reducing your blood flow or whatever, what's actually occurring is that you're taking damage and your body is healing itself really quickly. Because your blood is like, nope, I don't want to die. I don't want to be exposed to the outside world. So it's just closing it up itself real quickly, but it's getting more and more frightened. That's the idea behind Frenzy, is it's getting scared. And that's why the handler is there, because the handler allows you to reduce your frenzy. No vampire can cheat until they. Yeah, they will collapse in pain, being unable to. Actually, we'll say. If they say they take 15 damage, they collapse from the pain, being unable to continue the fight. Yeah, I will think on this one a little bit more. Because, again, it's really easy with people. It's very easy with... Because, like, the idea here is very solid, but I might want to make this a little bit more boring. But, like, the basic gist of combat's done. I think that's the big idea. Like, the basic gist of combat's done. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop streaming, and I am going to stare at this some more and think about it. Probably before next stream, probably before Wednesday. My goal is to get the conclusion phase done. I should actually add like conclusion. I should actually add the climax phase. Well, this is the climax. Add in the climax phase. It's kind of like, this is the final big thing. This is the final encounter kind of thing. After that, I should be good. I think I know how to do it. It's a lot of if it works. I'm not entirely 100% on if it's going to work or not. I do not know. I do not know about that one, Chief. So I'm going to call it there. So thank you all for watching. My name is Notepad, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. It might be best to sleep on it. Maybe. I don't. Like, it's one of those things, like, I can see it in my head, and it's going to be a completely random moment when I have it. I hope you know that. It's going to be like 3 a.m. Be like, holy shit, this is exactly how I have to do it. But I just need to think on it. So thank you all. Godspeed. Good luck. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I will beat my head against a wall until then. Tomorrow I'm gonna be working on the Fellowship 2nd Edition video. And I don't think that one's gonna be very long because it's literally just gonna be me making fun of Pippin dying. So, thank you much. Goodbye.